Hello everyone, my name's Dave, and this is part 8 of a video series where I'm going to show you how to create a tower-based defense game 100% from scratch using C++ and SDL2. In the last video, I showed you how to make it so that the turrets can shoot projectiles that move towards enemy units. In this part, I'm going to make it so that the projectiles damage and destroy the enemy units. I'm going to start by modifying the projectiles so that they can collide with enemy units. Currently, there is code that checks how far a projectile has traveled. If it reaches or goes beyond a maximum distance, then a variable called collision occurred is set to true. This then leads to the projectile being removed from the game. This is the perfect spot to add new code to check for collisions with enemy units. I'm going to add a new function called checkCollisions to do this. It will need to be able to access the list of units, so I'll also add that as an input for the update function. Of course, the header will need to be updated as well to reflect these changes. The loop that updates the projectiles in the game class will need to be updated as well to add list units as an input. The first thing I'm going to do is ensure that a collision hasn't already occurred. This is because if one has, we don't want this projectile to be able to collide with anything else. Next, I'm going to create a loop which loops through all of the enemy units to check if this projectile is currently overlapping any of them or not. Also note that one of the conditions for the loop to continue is that collision occurred is false. This is another piece of code that is necessary to ensure that this projectile isn't able to collide with multiple units. If this projectile overlaps an enemy unit, then some of its health needs to be removed to damage it by calling a function called removeHealth. And in addition, collision occurred will need to be set to true, indicating that a collision has occurred. A removeHealth function now needs to be created for the unit class. In order for a unit to have health removed, it needs to have health in the first place. So I'm going to add two new variables. The first is going to be constant and called healthMax. I'm going to set it to be 2. The second is going to be called healthCurrent, which will be set to healthMax. The removeHealth function will start by ensuring that the damage amount is positive, so that the unit's health can only go down when this function is called. Otherwise, it could go up, meaning that the unit would get healed, which of course isn't what we want. After that, the damage will be removed from healthCurrent, and a check will be performed to ensure that the lowest amount of health a unit can have is 0. Notice that there's a function above called getIsAlive. Rather than return the Boolean variable isAlive, I'm going to modify it to check if healthCurrent is greater than 0 or not. I'm also going to rename it so that it's called isAlive, because it's no longer getting the value of any variable. I'm also going to get rid of the variable called isAlive because it's no longer needed. Also note that the update function sets isAlive to false when the unit gets to its target destination in the center of the window. So I'm going to modify it to set healthCurrent to 0. Because the getIsAlive function is in the game class, its name will need to be modified there as well. The same holds true for the turret class's targeting system. Let's run the game and see what happens. Very nice. The projectiles now damage and destroy the enemy units. Notice how it takes 2 projectiles per enemy unit because an enemy unit has 2 health, and each projectile deals 1 damage. The next thing I want to do is add an effect where the enemy unit turns red briefly when it's hit. To do this, I'm going to add a timer called timerJustHurt to the unit class. This means that the timer header will need to be included as well. It will last for 0.25 seconds. I'm going to make sure to call its countdown function in the update function to ensure that the timer gets updated. I'm also going to add some code to the removeHealth function to reset the timer to its maximum time when the enemy unit gets hurt. Next, I'm going to add some code in the draw function that draws the unit red when needed. It checks to see if the timer has counted down to 0 yet or not. If it hasn't, then it means that the unit was hurt recently, and the texture needs to be drawn red. Otherwise, it gets drawn as it normally would. Let's run the game and see what happens. Very nice. The enemy units are now briefly drawn red when they are hit by the projectiles. This is great because it makes it very clear which units have been hit and when. The next step is to add a sound that plays when the turret shoots. However, this is a good place to stop for this video, and I'll start working on that in the next one. All the source code is available on my website, link is in the description. I've also got a bunch of other games, code, and tutorials on my channel and website, as well as a course where I create a falling sand platformer game 100% from scratch. Feel free to check those out if you're interested. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.